Oscar Micheaux, author, film director, and producer of over 44 motion pictures. Micheaux is regarded as the first African-American filmmaker, and he is the godfather of the race movie genre. He produced silent pictures and talkies. The first motion picture with synchronized dialogue sequences, or sound, was The Jazz Singer, released in 1927. And because of this technological advancement, production cost increased. In fact, they skyrocketed. The race movie genre felt a fatal blow. In fact, the genre almost vanished. Oscar Micheaux was the only film auteur from the race movie genre to make the transition from silent pictures to sound. Now, in 1929, Hollywood produced two big blockbuster musicals that year, and these films had an entire African-American cast with both of them. The films were Hallelujah and Hearts in Dixie. Now, the significant thing about these two films was that Hollywood continued to perpetuate the same racial stereotypes that African Americans had been wrestling with since slavery. Hallelujah and Hearts in Dixie had three main ingredients. They had singing, dancing, and clowning. So, the race movie industry was sort of hampered by this, and two things happened. Number one, the race movies were attempting to duplicate the big song and dance blockbuster sequences on a shoestring budget that they saw with the traditional white song and dance movies. Now, we saw this last week with The Duke is Tops. And the second thing is that, well, the race movies themselves took a backward step and perpetuated the same old Hollywood stereotypes as well. By the late 30s, well, Black Americans have made a lot of these race movies, they made a lot of these films, but there were no movies left, there were no movie theaters left to show these pictures. The studios have taken movie theaters and they put them in metropolitan areas. So you had Fox theaters, you had United Artists theaters, and you had Lowe's theaters, and they were showing Hollywood films. So there was really no place to show any race movies. Micheaux was forced to adapt to a shrinking market, and he produced gangster movies and mystery thrillers, very much like the one you are about to see tonight. Murder in Harlem is about a night watchman who was falsely accused of the murder of a white woman, but it is later revealed that a white man was responsible for the crime. It is produced by Alice B. Russell, his wife, and she also plays in it as well. She plays the leading lady's mother in this picture. Micheaux also comes out from behind the camera as well. He plays one of the detectives in the very first scene when they come out to inspect the body. He's the one reading the note, and you'll see in a little bit. Micheaux was also an author. Let us not forget that as well. This movie was based off of one of his earlier novels, The Story of Dorothy Stanfield. So, here we are from 1935, a picture from the Micheaux Pictures Corporation, written by Oscar Micheaux, co-produced with his wife, Alice B. Russell. She is credited here as A. Burton Russell, by the way, and directed by Oscar Micheaux. Here in Sepia Cinema tonight, we have Murder in Harlem. Enjoy.
197.
Magnolia Court. Mr. Brisbane's apartment. What's the matter, please? I'm trying to get Mr. Brisbane's apartment. There seems to be something wrong. If you'll wait a few minutes, I'll run up there and see. I'm sorry, but nobody answered. Mr. Brisbane's apartment. I was up there and rang his bell.
I would have called you sooner, but I've been trying to get Mr. Brisbane, the superintendent, on the wire to report to him first.
Where's the body?
In the basement. I'll show you.
A note. He tell me lay down like nightwind.
But who wrote it? And what does it mean?
I wonder. Another one. That tall Negro Diddley. He will try to lay it on the night.
Tall Negro. He will try to lay it on the night. What can it mean? I'm tall, but why, No. They couldn't be trying to lay this on me. I don't know anything about it except finding the body.
That'll do, son. Tell it to the judge. We're taking you with us. Come on.
What's the charge?
See this one, Sarge. This man is night watchman down the chemical plant where the girl was murdered. We didn't like the way he acted, so we brought him in.
Oh, the chemical murder, eh? I should say it is serious. You better put this fellow in the cell by himself. But of course, I'll have to book him regular. What kind of a dame? White? I guess I better see the captain about this thing. Hold everything. I find out what the captain says about it.
Looks like you're in a tough spot, buddy.
But all I know about it is finding the body.
That may be true. But the trouble is getting these Peckerwoods to believe it when they hear about it. The best thing, as I see it, is to slip you out of town for safekeeping before they find out about it.
Captain says to put this fellow on 395 until he has a chance to talk to him. Name?
Jones.
Who is it?
Good morning, madam.
What do you want?
To ask you a question.
Ask me a question? What do you mean?
The question is, are you fond of reading?
Fond of reading? Well, I never. Say, what are you trying to get at anyhow?
Because if you are, I have just what you'll want to be reading. This is it. A fine new novel by a Negro author. Of course, everyone is ordering a copy, and why shouldn't they? A work like this by one of our group is something to order. Of course, you're going to order a copy also. So what's the name, please?
Hold on now. You're working too fast.
Oh, am I? I'm sorry.
Well, I ain't never said I won't take one. What's this old book all about anyhow?
One of the sweetest love stories ever told.
And oh, yes, just a minute. There's a girl across the street who'll buy one. She's a great reader.
Oh, yes?
Sure. I see her with a book in her hand all the time.
That's fine.
Come over here. I'll show you where she lives. That's the house over there. See?
Oh, yes, that's fine. Okay, and thanks. I'll go right over. You're beautiful when you smile, so keep on smiling.
Flatterer.
Goodbye. See you Saturday.
Good day.
Oh, look at here. Baby, you know I sure does love you.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, kiss me, baby. Baby, you know I love you more and more. Bust me once more, Mama.
Oh, come on, Daddy. Shake a leg. You know how crazy I am about reading, and I just borrowed it. And I'm reading it. See?
Yeah, but kiss me once more, baby.
Be on your way. I'm going to a movie when I get through, so don't look for me back until late.
All right, dear. But don't stay out too late and then be afraid to come home in the dark. Try to get back in time for dinner.
Who's afraid of the big bad wolf? All right, Mommy. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, dear.
Pardon, miss, but a friend of yours sent me to see you.
Oh, indeed. What friend?
A lady friend across the street.
A lady friend of mine across the street? Who can that be?
Yes, she said you were a great reader, and I'm selling a fine new novel by a Negro author. Everybody is buying it and reading it. I want to show it to you and take your order.
What's this? A picture of the author? Looks a little like you, but of course it isn't. Writers, from what I've read about them, would be too conceited on one hand, and then too stupid on the other to go out and sell their own books to make a living.
I agree with you.
Looks like it might be interesting at that. And I am a great reader.
Then you'll take one?
Oh, yes. If for no other reason than because it's by a colored author.
Very kind and considerate of you. And then, please,
Oh, but wait a minute. What's the price?
$2.
Okay. The name is Vance. Claudia Vance.
Miss or Mrs.?
Oh, Miss.
Is it okay to deliver Saturday?
Sure. Any time after 5 o'clock.
Well, that's fine. Saturday, then.
Saturday.
Thank you. Thanks. Oh, by the way, the girl you told me to go and see across the street, she bought a copy of the book, all right. Thanks to you for sending me to her.
I'm glad.
A rather pretty girl. What does she do? What's the matter?
That's a question I'd rather not answer.
Oh, pardon me, but she seemed quite nice. I saw her mother, too.
The catbird, eh?
The catbird? What do you mean?
Mother. That's a sort of nickname over there. All the girls call her Mother.
I guess I don't understand.
When you deliver the book, you'll probably find out for yourself. Good day.
gentleman with the book. Come in.
Thank you.
Have a seat. This is the gentleman, Mother, that I ordered the book from. Do you mind showing it to her? This is my mother, Mr.
Glory.
Glory.
That's it. Glory is my name. Henry Glory.
Oh.
My, but it's attractive. And you say it's by a colored author? What's his name?
I forgot to get his name myself. Here's his picture. Maybe his name is under it.
He has an intelligent face. But there's no name here either.
The author's name isn't there because the book is published anonymously.
Oh, I see. Well, at least it looks like it might be interesting. How much did you say it was, dear?
Oh, yes, $2. Will you get it, Mother, please?
Surely.
You wrote this book, didn't you? Of course you did. I recognize you, in spite of the mustache you were wearing when you had the picture taken.
You are Mr. Glory?
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to read it first, dear. So here goes. Excuse me.
Have you any more deliveries to make tonight?
That was the last one.
I'm glad. Then if you don't mind, won't you sit down? I'd like to talk to you.
Thank you.
Sure. Why did you publish the book anonymously?
You're a persistent little person, aren't you? I haven't admitted that I wrote it.
Oh, but you did. And I bet you have some valid reason for publishing it anonymously. Tell me, please.
I'll tell you. We belong to a not very appreciative group when it comes to any achievement by each other, especially if they are privileged to meet that person ordinarily.
Yes?
If many of the so-called dictator people, whom I must sell, thought I wrote the book, they wouldn't read it with an open mind.
I see.
Of course, they're not all that way, but,
It costs money to publish it. And if they don't know you wrote it, you can sell it and go about your business without being
cross-examined. That's it exactly. In the meantime, I'm studying law, and the money I make from the sale of the book provides me with the means to do so. And that's the story.
Interesting. Now, speaking of law, have you considered how and where you will practice? After you've finished, of course.
Yes, right here in this town.
Well, my reason for asking you is, I visited in Washington last summer, which has no end of colored professional men.
Most of whom are starving, in a way, of course.
Oh, on the contrary, no. By no means. In fact, most of them get along very well.
Is that so? I've always held just the opposite impression. There's no industry in Washington to employ our group in the usual way, and...
Oh, this is another story entirely. Very simple, too. They married themselves a school teacher, who, as you have perhaps heard, are well paid, and... So if you find it hard to get along here, remember, there's some nice school teacher in Washington who will be very glad to make it very easy for you. They say down there that all a man has to be is a doctor or a lawyer, and he doesn't necessarily have to have any practice at all.
I'm awfully glad to have met you, and I've certainly enjoyed myself. Good night.
Good night.
Well, you?
Yes. I was just passing and thought I'd stop in.
I'm glad you did. Come on in. Have a seat.
Thank you.
I've been reading your book, Mr.
Glory. Henry Glory. Just think of the Lord when you see me and you'll recall my name. That's funny. But I've forgotten yours, too.
I can understand that you would, because I have the most peculiar one you ever heard of.
Really?
A most unusual name.
I like odd and peculiar names. What is yours? Trying to read the book.
It's interesting. Very interesting. It reads like a true story. Well, how are you doing?
Not bad at all. Selling quite a few books.
I'm glad. And oh, by the way, did the girl across the street take her book?
Oh, sure. The same night I delivered yours.
That's nice.
Funny situation, that.
What situation?
The girl across the street from you.
Oh.
She seems about one of the nicest persons I've ever met.
Well, I'm glad you think so.
I can't understand your point of view, but I can mine. I'm in love with her.
Oh, Mr. Glory, no.
Yes, I am. Not only in love with her, but madly.
Well, I never.
And I'm just foolish enough to believe that she's equally in love with me. And I guess this seems more foolish still. I'm going to call on her tonight and tell her that I love her. And then go out of her life forever.
And you insist on doing this foolish thing?
Yes. Tonight.
You've got the address, so everything's okay. At 8:30 tonight, where lights are low. Get me? Okay. It won't be long now, so let's get ready.
Claudia.
Oh, Mother. You frightened me.
Darling, you're in love.
Why, Mother.
Yes? With the young man who sold you the book.
I'm surprised to hear you talk like that.
Oh, I was a girl not so long ago. There's nothing to be ashamed of. There, baby. Mother's baby. Don't cry.
I just can't help it, Mother.
But he's a stranger, dear. Possibly a married man.
Oh, no. He's not married, Mother.
How do you know? Did you ask him?
Well, I simply know he isn't. He's a strange and unusual man with a definite objective, but he's not married. Oh, Mother, through the window, look. It's Mr. Glory.
Here he comes now. Rush rear door quick, you know.
He's coming to see me. Oh, Mother, what will I do? I'm so happy.
Go to your room, darling, and put on a dress. And fix yourself up. I'll entertain him until you return.
You're the sweetest mother in all the world.
Will you hurry, dear? He's starting in now. Hurry.
Why?
Shh. Did you hear that?
Hear what?
That noise in the hallway sounded like a body falling to the floor.
Oh, you must be mistaken. Where is Miss...
$7. Hell. The wrong man. Damn.
A Negro.
No wonder we didn't get nothing. A jig. The devil.
All right, stupid. Negro or au fait, get him out of here.
Well, people, did you see that mother? That bunch of crooks next door? Maybe they've pulled a murder this time. I've told Papa repeatedly to report them to the police.
But, Claudia...
But nothing, Mother. I wouldn't be surprised to hear that they've just blackjacked and robbed Mr. Glory with him coming here to see me.
He had to be late, of course.
Yeah. While you sock a poor jigwalk on the bean and get chicken feed for your trouble. Some trigger man, you.
Oh, rats.
Henry Glory.
Claudia. Come in. Be seated.
Thanks.
Miss Vance, is it still? Three years have passed since I sold you the book. This chemical factory murder, the night watchman they're holding, does that happen to be your...
My brother.
That's bad. I'm sorry. Well, can I serve you? I'm a lawyer now.
So I see. I was looking for a lawyer. I didn't exactly catch the name on the door.
I've been practicing close to 2 years now.
That's fine. I hope you are succeeding.
Thank you.
You see, my brother is in serious trouble. We should have an experienced lawyer. You understand what I'm trying to say, don't you?
I both understand and appreciate your position.
While
I feel perfectly capable of handling your brother's case, that is, if you want me to.
Of course, we want a lawyer. A good lawyer.
Exactly. If I find the case getting away from me, I would gladly call in more experienced counsel.
That clarifies the matter. Then I wish to retain you.
Thank you. Now for some of the facts in the case.
I don't know anything. I haven't even seen my brother. I know he didn't commit the crime, and they've taken him away for safekeeping. He's not even in the city.
That's right. I know where they've taken him, so we'll go out and see him the first thing tomorrow morning.
All I know about it is finding the body.
Well, tell me all about that. What was the exact hour, if you recall it?
It was just after midnight.
That's right. The murder, however, has been known to have been committed at least 12 hours before. The point is, where were you at that time, say, between 1 and 2 p.m.?
At the factory. I had been asked by Mr. Brisbane, the superintendent, to be there at that time.
Oh, by Mr. Brisbane. Then you were at the factory about the time the murder was committed. Well, that puts you closer to it. When you got to the factory, was Mr. Brisbane there?
Yes, he was there when I arrived.
Oh, now that's better. We're getting somewhere. Was he still there when you left, or did you leave first? Tell me about that, too.
Yes, he was there when I arrived, and I left him there. Well, I'm here, Mr. Brisbane.
So I see. But you're too early, Arthur. I tell you what you do. You go home and get some more sleep, see?
But I'm not sleeping, Mr. Brisbane.
Yes, you are. I can see it in your eyes. You need some more rest. Now, you go home and get it. And then get up and come back here at 6 o'clock.
Just as you say, Mr. Brisbane.
Be sure and be back at 6 o'clock, Arthur.
Okay, Mr. Brisbane, 6 o'clock.
Was there anyone else present when you had this conversation with Mr. Brisbane?
No, there was no one else present.
Well, they're holding the preliminary tomorrow morning. I'll be on hand, and so will Brisbane and the other watchmen. Until then, don't talk. Understand?
I understand.
Now tell the court in your own words, Mr. Brisbane, just what happened, as far as you know, in connection with this affair last Saturday afternoon.
Well, it was around noon.
Good morning, Mr. Brisbane.
Good morning. What can I do for you?
I've come for my pay.
The name, please.
Myrtle Stanfield.
Here you are. Myrtle Stanfield. $1.50.
Thank you. Pardon me, but have the new chemicals come?
I don't know.
May I go back and see?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Arthur, you? What are you doing here now?
Why, I left a pair of shoes in the chemical room the other day. May I go back and get them?
Yes. You may get them. And that's the last time I saw the girl or the watchman until today. You're with us?
No questions, Your Honor.
Good heavens, he's trying to lay that on me. Why, I never even saw the girl that afternoon.
Obviously. But be calm. Meantime, they'd indict anybody on that testimony. At the trial, it'll be different.
All right, Arthur. Let's go.
It's really serious now, isn't it?
Yes, it is serious now. What is your name?
Sarah Stanfield.
Were you acquainted with the deceased, Myrtle Stanfield?
She was my daughter.
Do you recall Saturday afternoon?
I do.
Then tell the court in your own words just what passed between you and your daughter, where she went, and what time she came home on Saturday afternoon, May 26th.
It must have been around... No.
No, Mr. Brisbane wouldn't give it to me.
But that's funny. You've gotten it before. What new rule is this all of a sudden?
Well, I don't know. You just wouldn't give it to me. Said you'd have to come for it yourself.
Well, I can certainly do that. It ain't but $1.50, but I need it, so I'll go for it myself. Now, do be careful, darling. Hurry back to Mother. Dear Mommy. It was around 6 o'clock when George came back.
Where's Myrtle?
I thought she had the factory to get her money. Hasn't she been back?
Why, no.
Well, she promised to stop by and speak to Mom on her way back. She didn't. And Mom was a bit worried, so she sent me over here to see what happened.
I never saw her alive again. When...
Brisbane is lying. but has built up a perfect alibi. I wonder why.
Because he killed Myrtle Stanfield.
Maybe. But why? What was his motive?
That's what we've got to find out. Brisbane not only committed the crime, but somebody knows he did.
I don't follow you.
Well, if somebody didn't know about it, he wouldn't be trying to put it on.
And we are back. And thank you. Thank you very much for joining us this evening for Sepia Cinema. I'm Elroy Boyd, and you have just witnessed Murder in Harlem, at least the first part of it. Murder in Harlem is a 1935 mystery thriller produced and directed and written by Oscar Micheaux. Oscar Micheaux was the godfather of the race movie genre. He produced over 44 motion pictures during his time, and he was the first African-American feature filmmaker, and that was Murder in Harlem. Murder in Harlem was based on one of his novels. He was also a well-selling novelist, by the way. It was based on a book that he wrote back in the late teens called The Story of Dorothy Stanfield. And of course, as you know, the character who was murdered in the film, her name was Myrtle Stanfield. So there was, a bit of differences in adapting to the genre of film from fiction, as often is the case. Oscar Micheaux. Oscar Micheaux was a man from the Midwest. He was caught up in the spirit of Horace Greeley, who said, "Go west, young man, and grow up with the country." He was a homesteader, and he wrote a book called The Homesteader. He had a ranch in South Dakota, I believe. And he wrote his books there, and he peddled his books. He wrote his books, and he self-published his books, and he sold them door to door, very much like Clarence Brooks at the beginning of the film. Clarence Brooks, you notice he played the role of Henry Glory, and he went around door to door to sell his self-published book that he wrote. And so Clarence Brooks was the representation of Oscar Micheaux in this motion picture. We need to have something understood here with this film. This is what we call a lost film. This film was found, along with several other race films, in a box, in a warehouse, in Tyler, Texas, in 1983. There had been some deterioration with the sound, as you notice, in some areas. So this is a very, very important gem in black film history. So it is, just very much of a pleasure that we have here, that we can show this to you this evening here on Sepia Cinema. Our phone lines are open, 915-5202, 915-5202. Feel free to pick up the phone and share your comments, facilitate a discussion about the film Murder in Harlem, which is what it is this evening. You may recognize Clarence Brooks from a couple of weeks back here on Sepia Cinema. He was also in the film Harlem Rides the Range with Herb Jeffries. So Clarence Brooks was a very busy actor during that time. As you know, you have a group of several actors, and you also had a stable of actors who often portrayed in several of Micheaux's films. We're going to play a couple of other Micheaux films here during our run here at Sepia Cinema. Mrs. Vance, as I told you earlier, was played by Alice B. Russell, who was his wife and also the co-producer of this film. If you notice in the opening title, the title had A. Burton Russell Presents Murder in Harlem, and that was Alice Russell. Alice Russell passed away in about 1984. She worked very, very closely with her husband in producing all of his films. Oscar Micheaux has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame for his contributions to motion pictures. So this is an incredibly treasured gem that we have here at Sepia Cinema. This film is also a remake of a previous Micheaux film. Micheaux made a film back in 1921 called The Gonzales Mystery, but it was silent. It was a silent film. Same storyline. A young girl who worked in a factory was murdered and was found by a night watchman, and the night watchman was accused of the crime, but of course it turned out that the head of the factory manager, was the one who actually killed the young lady. The difference is with the Gonzales mystery was that the young lady was an African American young lady. This was a white woman here that we're dealing with in this film, and he also wanted to redo the film. He also wanted to remake the film in the advent of sound, with the sound advent that was going on at the time in the early 30s. This entire story, remade from the Gonzales mystery and also based from his novel, The Story of Dorothy Stanfield, this entire story was actually a real story, and it was the story of a man named Leo Frank. Leo Frank was a Jewish American factory manager, and it was a very terrible situation that I believe happened about 1913. Leo Frank was accused of killing a factory worker in the National Pencil Company, excuse me. It was the National Pencil Company, and her name was Mary Fagan. And he was accused of killing Mary Fagan, and the jury found him guilty of that. He was sent to prison, but a group of very influential citizens in the town came to the prison, kidnapped him, and lynched him. And then that brought up a huge amount of tension in the town between the Jewish Americans and the white Americans. Even one former representative called for a return of the KKK to deal with such situations at that time. Now remember, this was about 1913. So Micheaux, who was ever so conscious in realizing in taking a look at what was going on around him, took the inspiration from that story and wrote The Story of Dorothy Stanfield, later The Gonzales Mystery, and now Murder in Harlem. Oscar Micheaux, he did everything fast. Now, we briefly talked about this last week when we talked about guerrilla filmmaking, when we showed The Duke is Tops, and we talked about The Duke is Tops, how that was done in about 10 days or so. We could not find out exactly how long it took to make this film, but knowing Micheaux and knowing how he worked, his reputation for quality under a shoestring budget, but pretty much just meeting the demand of the populace. Meeting the demand of the black populace, he did everything fast. He did everything fast as he could. Now, you may have noticed while watching this film that there were a few gaffes there. The camera at some points some scenes were kind of tilting. It wasn't still and such. Oh, we have a caller here. Good evening. Welcome to Sepia Cinema.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for taking my call.
Yes.
I've watched the past couple of weeks in the movies you've shown. I've enjoyed them.
Well, thank you.
But and I've heard of Oscar Micheaux, known about his work. But one thing you can't help but notice when you watch the films is the light skin thing.
Yes.
And I mean, you can't miss it.
That's right.
And I understand that is, it's a problem. It's affecting the black community back then, and it seems like it's still affecting us today. If you look at a movie like Precious, you couldn't help but notice in that movie. Do you think this will ever change in in the black community in general, but in black movies?
Sadly, I don't think.
Visual,
Yeah, I don't think it will, unless the community itself, unless we take care of the problem off screen, in reality, unless we educate ourselves and do away, with the brown paper mentality, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're talking
Yeah, but until we as a community can alleviate that mentality, starting with our children, I don't really believe that it will ever go away. It is very, very observant of you to have noticed that in early 20th century films. And
you can't help but miss it.
You cannot.
You can't miss it.
Yes.
And I can understand it back then, but it's 2011 now. Still making movies like Precious and whatnot. It's pretty obvious. It was pretty obvious in that movie. So, but it seems like it's a straight lineage from his era on down to today, and it seems like it hasn't changed. But still had a great respect for the man and his work, and appreciate you showing it.
Thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Thank you, caller. Yes, and if you notice, we have email address right there at the screen, ladivoarts@gmail.com. Also, we have a Facebook page, facebook.com/Ladivo. Click like, drop a line, let us know how you enjoyed the show. If you are enjoying the show, we'll be greatly appreciative. Speaking of Oscar Micheaux, he did everything fast. He was a guerrilla filmmaker, if you will. And there were some gaffes in there at some points. The cameras were tilting and such. And, one film critic even, printed something in the black newspaper, don't whine, and don't complain about the quality of these films. Go out and support, because if you support Micheaux, you are also supporting the African American community. So it was very, very important. It was sort of like almost an undercurrent that, these films may not be the best in craftsmanship, but let's not say anything bad about him. He was a workaholic, drove himself to the end. He died on the road while promoting one of his films in 1951. So he was a maverick. He was definitely a maverick, and he made great strides in motion pictures as well. He kind of got his start from the Lincoln Motion Picture Company. The Lincoln Motion Picture Company was a company started by Noble Johnson back in the late teens, and they approached Micheaux by requesting if they can have the rights to his book, The Homesteader, and making a movie out of it. Micheaux was then just a writer, but he demanded the right to direct the motion picture himself. Lincoln would not allow it, of course. They just wanted the rights, but they would not allow anyone who did not have no experience to come in to direct a motion picture. So, when a door closes, a window opens, as spirit allows. What does he do? In a few months, he hired a cast, he hired equipment, and he hired a chauffeur to take a group of Chicago actors and drive them all the way over to South Dakota to film The Homesteader. And that's what he did, and that's what happened, and he changed motion picture history as well. And as I said earlier, he was the only race movie producer to successfully make the transition from silent movies over to sound. Now, let's talk about Micheaux and the issues with sound in the last couple of minutes that we have. Don't forget, 915-5202, 915-5202. Please do not hesitate to pick up the phone and call. Last couple of minutes that we have. When talkies came on the scene, and as I mentioned earlier at the top of the show, that the production cost skyrocketed because of this. Now we can incorporate sound. Now we have to perpetuate this. You know, we got to move forward. We cannot go back. Well, in trying to do it a couple of times, Micheaux went bankrupt. He lost everything, well, a couple of times. So he went to Frank Schiffman, who owned Harlem's Apollo Theater at the time in 1931. And he got the money from Frank Schiffman, and he went on to make The Exile. And The Exile was released in 1931. The Exile is the first African-American movie with sound. And maybe one day in the future we can play that one for you as well. So we have one more minute. Please don't worry to pick up the phone, 915-5202, 915-5202. We have one more minute. So Micheaux was definitely persistent in what he was doing. He had a dream, he had a philosophy, and he felt that he had to get his message out to the black populace. You know, there was something that Micheaux said. He said, "I am helping the Negro." And I really do believe that he really believed that very, very much. And so that was it for Murder in Harlem for this evening. Thank you for joining us here on Sepia Cinema. Next week, oh boy, we're going to have a little bit of a controversy here. Step and Fetch It, Moon over Harlem next week. Sepia Cinema. Take care.